welcome General Counsel Kwok. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Pleasure. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi. I will stop here. I won't make it. Good evening, everybody. Of course, it's a very difficult job if you come into a running event and you have been introduced initially as the keynote speaker of the event, and time is running out, So what has been said, you can only assume. I was fortunate enough to come here and hear some commercials about Germany, how valuable trip experiences there can be. Very glad. So you must have done the critical part before I arrived. And you cannot expect from me to do the critical part in the keynote speech or in my short address. Maybe we can come to that in the Q&A. I'm ready for that. I see there was some space reserved for it, although I don't know if you've all eaten enough and how much time we actually have. I will not be as long as is written in the program, which gave me 10 minutes, but I prepared some remarks because I thought if I go there, what would be at that time of the event a message that I could bring? Who should I in particular address? And I would like to know, I know these people on the podium, we've met before. Who else is here from Aktion Sühnezeichen? I think you're the only one, are you, at the moment? The current reconciliation. And Eddie Oell, of course, I've heard many speakers, but Germany close up? Okay. And the rest are interested audience? Very good. But I'd like to make a particular case of addressing our young volunteers from Germany, if you don't mind. So, as I said, I won't speak for 10 minutes, and I wanted to say a little more than just the expected thank you to the volunteers. But then the more difficult process of meditation started, namely, what can I bring to this gathering which meets the requirements both of some gravitas without overwhelming the social purpose of the gathering. So while refreshing my memory of the origins of Aktion Sühnezeichen, I was reminded of my visit to St. Paul's Church in the East End of London a couple of years ago, where Dietrich Bonhoeffer, this eminent representative of the confessing church, Bekennende Kirche, had preached from 1933 till 1935. Bonhoeffer, who later became one of the millions of victims of Nazi terror, is, as you all know, a key reference point or person for Action Reconciliation Service for Peace, whose activities and achievements have brought us together tonight. So Bonhoeffer, from our viewpoint today, and this certainly holds for every person in the room, was on the good side of history. He could not prevent the bad side of history temporarily gaining the upper hand, but he made an effort, losing his life in the process. I'm no Bonhoeffer expert, but I dare say, on the basis of the little I know, that he did not take decisions lightly. But when he had made up his mind, he faced the consequences till the end. He was certainly an example of courage, Zivilcourage, to stand up for one's convictions, especially if they run against the political and social mainstream, takes great courage, especially in a totalitarian system, but not only there and then. We all have to make choices in the incomparably much freer living conditions of our Western democratic environment. And although we are not threatened with death for expressing our convictions, we can sometimes be rightly concerned about setbacks in our jobs, or we may risk stigmatization if we raise our voices too loud in our immediate environment. It may be just as difficult for a white US citizen to stand in for the rights of an African American in some remote redneck area in the US as for a German to speak out against anti-Semitism in a bar or at your local Stammtisch. The young volunteers of ARSP have taken a decision which goes beyond verbal expressions of opinions. Since 1958, and you just gave the accumulated figure, they have been investing their precious time in concrete endeavors and social projects in countries directly or indirectly affected by the Holocaust. Since 1968, ARSP is active in the United States. The volunteers among us are part of this ongoing effort. You have contributed very effectively to a slowly improving image of Germany, and I would like to thank you very much. We are very proud of you. Let me conclude with a few remarks about another famous German religious figure, Martin Luther. So not the American, who chose the name after visiting Wittenberg, but the unwilling founder of the Protestant Church. We are currently in the run-up of 500 years, that is half a millennium, of his nailing the theses to the gate of Wittenberg Church in 1570. He asked for reform of his Catholic Church. He was appalled by the level of corruption and abuse of power, but it was the short-sighted reaction of the church authorities to his call for reform that eventually led to the division of the Christian Church. Does Bonhoeffer stand in the tradition of Martin Luther? As far as his intolerance of obvious wrong goes, yes. As far as anti-Semitic sentiment is concerned, luckily not. Given the general mindset shortly after the end of the Middle Ages, we are talking about 1517, 1492, the discovery of the New World and the end of the Middle Ages, beginning of the modern era. So given the general mindset at that time, it would not do credit to Luther's overreaching importance if we only considered him on his anti-Semitic sentences. Here I stand, I can not other, is the conviction that binds Bonhoeffer to Luther, and both showed great courage. By the way, courage was of course also demonstrated by Lothar Kreisig when he pushed through the founding act of ARSP during the synodal meeting in Berlin in 1958. It is no secret that it met with a lot of opposition at the time. Like many other decisions after World War II, this is another example of a minority idea proving right in the end. Dear volunteers, be inspired by the courage of great historic personalities, of whom I have only mentioned two. Man is fallible, so think twice before you decide what to do. But when you have thoroughly examined your conscience and come to a conclusion, do not hesitate simply because it is against the mainstream. Thanks again for your work, and all the best to all of you for your future career, personal life, and I wish the best of success to the continued activities of ADL and Germany Close Up, of course, as well. And on a more happy note to the end, I mean, it is great to be able to stand here in Chicago at this time and quote recent opinion polls about Germany being the most liked, most popular country in the world. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
And I'm ready to take questions. Could I have some water, please? Maybe we should open the floor up for some.
Yeah.
Open the floor up for questions for any of our guests, any of our speakers.
I want to pick up where we left off with this concept of hope, and briefly touch on something that I witnessed. So my disclaimer is I grew up in Michigan, but I lived in Germany for 8 years. Been back in the U.S. now for 3 years. 2008 to 2011 was in Berlin. November 9th, infamous day in German history. Not only the fall of the Berlin Wall and many other things, but one of the most other prominent ones was Kristallnacht in 1938. 70th anniversary of Kristallnacht. I participated in something in Berlin that I'll never forget. And we commemorated that the 70th year anniversary of Kristallnacht. And the Jewish community was expecting a few hundred people to show up and do a silent march, starting at the Berlin City Hall and moving to the Catholic Cathedral, then the Protestant Cathedral, and then to the new synagogue on Oranienburger Straße. I don't remember what the official numbers were, but several thousand people. The weather was miserable, about like it was here yesterday. And myself, as much time as I spent in Germany, this kind of confronting Germany's past was always very present in what does Germany need to do to confront its past. And to see the amount of German people on the street commemorating this in this very peaceful action gave me a much higher level of hope than the Holocaust Mahnmal that exists there in Berlin, because it's stones, it's a space, and people can interpret this. But these were people of all walks of life, of all ages, demonstrating. So this was something that really was a tremendous experience for me. So my question for any of you would be, what, particularly for Jewish people who come to Germany and are reluctant to come to Germany and to visit Germany, what does German society, what's the process that needs to continue in continuing to confront its past?
I have an opinion on that, of course. But if you want to say something, because you're younger than I am, I think there's no question that the work of enlightenment about historic events has to continue. There's no discussion about putting a final stop to that, and I think it would be a wrong decision. So no serious politician that I know is considering this, other than the contribution, the solidarity contribution to the eastern parts of Germany. There is an ongoing discussion, and you hear, of course, isolated voices, but I stress no serious politician that I know of, no serious media people, no serious educators would tell you that, like what you hear at the Stammtisch, at the bar occasionally, we've had enough of that preaching us, of the bad doings of our past. You hear those voices, yes. You have to stand up to that, and the majority of people are standing standing up to that, like they are standing up to